We're going to talk zettabytes and all sorts of stuff. It's like we're looking ahead to the future of civilization. And Swati, if I can maybe start with you and just look when we think about, we think about the future at all, but in the bigger picture, the future of civilization. Are we making it up as we go, do you think? Or, who will map the future of civilization and who's responsible, I suppose?
Well, speaking as an investor, I do think it's going to be the entrepreneurs and the innovators who will be leading the change, mapping the future of civilization. But that said, they will have to be supported by policymakers who are technology savvy, who are regulating in an educated manner, and then they will have to be supported by global collaboration. So globalization is a thing, and everything that innovators are doing today goes beyond borders. Whether it was, solving for diseases or solving for cyber threats, it needs global collaboration. So I do think these three elements are needed as we move towards the future: innovation, great regulation, tech savvy, and of course, global collaboration.
Absolutely, and if we're missing any of those, I don't think it's going to happen. Anla, when we look at the future of civilization, I think we need to look back a little bit in terms of the future, looking to the future, looking back, the Silk Road, and I suppose the power of Asia back in the day. Are we looking, I suppose, at a rebirth in this region here for China in terms now of the Belt and Road?
Yes, I totally agree with Swati. The three elements were present when China had its Silk Road from the 12th century all the way through 1820. They had about 30 to 35% of global GDP. Today, the new Silk Road is the Belt and Road, as we better known it as BRI. And here they have almost 80% of the global population. 155 countries are part of this new Silk Road. And now, more recently, it's accumulated more than 50% of global GDP. Only in last August in Brazil, when we had the BRICS meeting, 6 new countries were joined, including Saudi, UAE, and Iran. Along with Russia, they include over 50% of global oil exports. And along with Ethiopia and Egypt, they have 3 of the 8 main choke points, maritime choke points: Straits of Hormuz, Suez Canal, and this other place that I cannot pronounce, Bun el Ab, or something like that, near Ethiopia. But the point is, 80% of global trade still goes through maritime in the sea. So these ports are very important. Now, China owns 100 ports around the world, constituting 50 countries. And what this means is that in the last decade with Xi Jinping, he has been plotting and creating a foundation whereby it's not only the new Silk Road, but really globalizing. So very entrepreneurial, very innovative, and very global.
Francois, there's a lot happening clearly on Earth here, but you have visions beyond, let's say. Talk to me a little bit about, to sustain the civilization here, do you think that we really need to be looking beyond Earth and, again, exploring and perhaps exploiting what's happening in space?
Definitely. And so I like to come back on what Swati was saying about entrepreneur. I truly believe that solution will come from entrepreneur, but also entrepreneur looking at space. We've seen recently the US government releasing footage of unexplained phenomenon. So vessel, vehicle behaving and moving like we don't understand yet. And so that make us realize that there's so many technologies that we don't master yet. And we are just at the beginning of understanding the way we travel. And Blake will talk about that. Understanding the way we manage energy. And we are on a planet that's where we are draining our resources. If we want more people and if we want to grow our civilization in a sustainable way, we need to look for answers that are not on this planet. And that's why I truly believe that we need to look outside.
And again, look further outside, because I think already we're seeing a lot of great advantages looking in terms of what we've had there. Blake, when we and we've heard over the last day and a half, really, humans need greater connectivity, and be that digital or be it in person, it really doesn't matter. We seem to need a lot more. But cross-border as well. I mean, you would say, I suppose, we need to get out more, we need to expand horizons. Do you think that society has become insular, perhaps, and we need to really shift that to make sure the new civilization is successful?
Absolutely. When I look across the course of human history, throughout most of the time that we've walked on this planet, we spent our entire lives maybe 20, 30 kilometers from where we were born. And as civilization has progressed, first we were able to migrate or make one-way journeys, and now the planet is far more connected than it ever has been before. And I think I think furthering that trend is incredibly important to our future. When we meet other people, particularly in person, we connect and we see our shared humanity. And it's very, very difficult to clash with another civilization that we understand. And so enabling more travel, more human in-person connection, I think breaks down the barriers between civilizations and allows us to collaborate globally. And so that's why I'm so passionate about supersonic flight, and why I think any trend toward isolation is ultimately very negative for humanity.
Anla, let me come to you and talk a little bit about China in terms of, I suppose, key technologies that we all need and use, defense, some elements of maybe a Cold War in there at the moment. Should the Western world be afraid of China right now?
Okay, if you want to address that first, fine. I was going to talk about the key technologies
Well, bring me the technologies, maybe, because I think we're a little bit afraid of that too.
Sure. So why don't we talk about the key technologies first? The ASPI, the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, has identified through their research that 37 out of 44 key technologies are led by China, and they include defense, energy, economics. Let's see, I want to make sure I don't miss it. So I have my robotics, environment, energy, biotech, space, AI, right? Advanced materials and key quantum technologies. Beyond that, really, some people have heard about peak China. China's really facing economic headwinds, etc. But in fact, 4.3% of their GDP has been offset by the downturn in real estate, with both two revolutions, green revolution as well as digital revolution. So I'll touch upon it very quickly. Green revolution, 4 key areas. First and foremost is the wind power. They have about 40% world capacity, and prices have come down 80% in the last 10 years. Secondly, solar industry. They have an 80% global market share, exports 114 gigawatts, which is like the installed capacity of the entire United States. I'm going to go very quickly because I know we don't have much time. Solar cells, prices of that have come down 97% in the last few years. Asking Western powers, is it worthwhile their onshoring? Because this huge gap, cost gap, is not worth for them to develop the solar converters. And lithium batteries, we know how important these storage batteries are. Prices have gone up 43% in the last year, but in EV batteries, they're up by 97%. And the 3 of the 4 largest manufacturers are Chinese, CATL being the largest. And finally, I want to say that China has done not so great a job in the environmental destruction through the Belt and Road in the early stages. And therefore, they've put together 3,000 green talents to make sure that they restore that and to make sure that they cut emissions. So that's one. I'd like to go into the digital revolution, but we can touch that later.
And again, I think there's so much that we have to do when it comes to sustainability in every country. So it's not just China, but there's a lot of movement in that. Francois, what have we already learned from space, I suppose? And where is the absolute essential drive that we stay there? And again, the race to space, what's it really all about?
So what's interesting is today we are trying to solve climate change with technologies like solar panel, lithium-ion batteries, fuel cells, that were all developed in the 60s in the first race for space. And that's really key to understand. So what I truly believe is that in order to solve for climate change, we still need to be looking at space and bring this technology back on Earth. Earth observation satellites have allowed us to better monitor and measure ice melts, heights of water, GPS to better positions, what happens. And so space is critical. What we are investing right now in space is the next frontier. What can we manufacture in space and not on Earth anymore that will make huge benefits, lower carbon emissions. And in order to do that, we are discovering more technologies around energies that I'm sure in the coming years we'll be able to use back on Earth.
Blake, when we look at aviation and we look at advancement in technology and innovation, aviation sort of it's not quite stalled over the time, but you're bringing back supersonic. But talk to me about this in terms of, Concorde was there and it's gone, and now you're bringing us Boom.
Yes.
How different is this going to be, and why do we need it?
I mean, we've absolutely stalled out in aviation. It's a travesty. I mean, for the first 50 years from the Wright brothers forward, we made regular progress in how fast we could fly and how affordable it was to fly, and the world got closer together. And then in the 1960s, we absolutely just lost our way. Totally lost our way. We built Concorde, which is marvelous technologically, but it was unaffordable. And we never did it with a commercial model. So we flew for 27 years, let it get rusty, shut it down, went backwards. We absolutely went backwards. And I think one of the things I've learned is two things. One, to move forward, to make real progress, we need entrepreneurially driven models. Concorde was never designed to have a business model. It didn't make any sense financially. And so to continue forward with speed, and I believe speed is deeply important because it's what brings us closer together, we need commercially led models, and we need collaboration internationally. Concorde was part of a competition across nations. The French and the British were trying to show up the Russians. And so we were fighting. And when I look at what we're doing at Boom, we've built a global supply chain here. The fuselage comes from Italy. The wings are made in Spain. The engines are made in the US. We have suppliers all around the world. And so there's a global team coming together to re-accelerate flight in order to make the globe more connected. And doing that commercially first is super important, so it's both environmentally and economically sustainable.
There's so much to be done in that. Swati, let's have a look at, you talked about what policymakers need to do. And again, one thing I picked up, and they need to be technology savvy, forward-looking. And sometimes I suppose the bureaucrats in government might not necessarily come with those credentials. Mm-hmm. Is that a big threat to us when we look at, I suppose we're at this tipping point of civilization, when we really need to open our minds and maybe think a bit differently?
Absolutely. I do believe that the threats to us, even just so I do believe that regulators in every sphere need to be technology savvy. And I'll take the example of defense alone, right? The threats are no longer old-fashioned where you'll have kind of people hurling bombs at you. It's not that anymore. The threats are cyber threats. The potential for cyber attack on your nuclear facilities, the potential for cyber attacks on your power plants and power facilities. So all of these threats are not going to be mitigated by people who don't understand technology. Right? So regulators have to be technology savvy themselves, and if not, then have an advisory council that is forward-looking technology savvy. Those, I think they do, but I'm not sure how effective those have been historically. So I do believe that the future leaders, very much like the guys that are going to map the future, which is entrepreneurs, very much like those, the future leaders have to be technologists themselves as well.
Anla, when we look at, you talked about the technologies here in China, but when we look at, I suppose, the development of China and the expansion of China in many ways, particularly abroad, is this all about feeding everybody at home, or is it about China becoming a global superpower? What do you think?
Right. I want to address your earlier question, is China scary?
Okay.
And about 2 weeks ago, The Economist brought that very question and was the front cover. Clearly, China boasts the largest army and military and navy, without question, in terms of numbers. However, when you look at their technology in terms of space warcraft, etc., they are still a little behind the U.S. And they're catching up quickly, and the U.S. recognizes that, and they're also spending quite a bit of money. And the conclusion that The Economist had after their research is that it will take time. You know, their military warfare, tacticals, analogies show that they still need a little time to train their military staff. Their wares are still behind. So no need to be worried, but the key question that you're addressing is something that I think as the story unfolds, is China creating a similar Marshall Plan to bring public goods to the world through this maritime and new Silk Road, the Belt and Road? And do they want to deliver peace and good for the world? Or do they want to promote their own vision and their modus operandi?
So what do you think? Which one is it?
I'm going to leave that open to,
Okay.
but I do want to point out in conclusion, Parag Khanna, who is a futurist bestseller, who says he's all about mega trends and mega cities, and he believes in urbanization and digitalization, and how we are in the process of creating 50 mega clusters around the world. And through trade, and I think one of you mentioned it earlier, is that connectivity is the key. As we expand globally, as we technologically can connect to all the parts of the world, we are all connected. And through that, he says we can create what he calls Pax Urbanica. And we hope that we can bring peace to the world.
And again, he's a big believer that the future is Asian and a big focus here in China. Francois, you're not a big fan of actually moving to space. You have no plans to do that or to do space tourism. And there's an awful lot of investment going in there. But again, is it really about making sure that the exploration and exploitation of resources in space come back here to help us on Earth, rather than getting obsessed with the fact that maybe we should be taking regular trips just for the hell of it?
It's exactly true. You know, some people are a big fan of being the multi-planetary species, but I think the key point about space is what can we learn? How can we harvest whether it's meteorites, whether it's the moon, to bring back some energies to save and protect our planet. I think among everything we know, our planet is still the best place to live, and so I personally have no intention to either live on the moon or Mars or whatever in our solar system, and trying to go elsewhere would be way too far. So we need to do everything we can to learn and protect what we have today.
Like when we look at, I suppose, again, coming back to the title here, the future of civilization and where we need to go, what got us here, so to speak, is certainly not going to get us there. How do you see, I suppose, prioritizing, foresight and forward thinking, and again, this open-minded, and maybe governments need to widen their scope a little bit. What do we need to do? What's missing?
Yeah, I mean, if I look across, human history, what would be my favorite time to live? And my second favorite time in history is right now. And my favorite time is the future. So if we look across 200,000 years, we have consistently made progress. But progress in the future is not automatic. And as we saw with supersonic flight, we can have something that we can lose our way and go backwards. And I think we need to be bold. We need to think big. And we need to take personal responsibility for building towards that vision in the future. And every single one of us has a role to play in that. An individual can make a difference, and when we work together, we can make an even bigger difference.
Swati, talk about the future of data. We heard about, the zettabytes, and it's just beyond that. The future of data is essential, but we have to get it right. I mean, I think it could be a force of nature, force of good or evil.
Yes, of course. I mean, so of course, it's going to be produced in zettabytes and so on all over the world. It is being harnessed, certainly by people who could do evil. And the only way I feel that you can mitigate those threats is by collaboration, global collaboration. That is something I truly advocate for, because there's no way there's going to be evil forces kind of everywhere and springing up everywhere. The only way you can actually combat them effectively is by global collaboration. And today, data knows no boundaries, and neither does evil, to be honest. So today, the world, I find it a little absurd to be saying, oh, should we be afraid of China? I mean, come on, half the manufacturing happens there. So I am not sure how any part of the world can live without the
Without it.
other.
We've
It
already
is-
embraced it,
Yes,
yes.
it is one world
Yeah.
at this point. So I think we need to go beyond these considerations of boundaries and recognize that the future is electrons, and they travel very fast, and they travel across the globe. And if we want to mitigate the threats that arise from there, it has to be global collaboration.
And maybe pay less attention to the media headlines and to the people who are actually doing business. We're going to have to wrap it up. I think that's a lovely closing from you. Anla, if there's a call to action out there in terms of we look to the future of civilization, what do you think we all need to be doing right away?
I think we need to connect with each other, collaborate. And right now, research coming from China is forbidden. They need to open that up. And I think the last meeting between Xi Jinping and Biden was a great success. We want to make sure that we continue on that trajectory.
Francois, again, a quick call to action that's going to help us really when we look ahead to civilization.
If you look again at our main problem, which is climate change, what's creating climate change is the way we either use energy or make energy. Again, looking at space, there's a huge source of energy that we barely utilize, which is the sun. And whether it's building solar panel or a mirror in space to collect more of that energy so we don't have to produce it on Earth and collect that, or harvest helium-3 on the moon and use that as a nuclear power for our civilizations, I think we will solve a lot of problems.
And Blake, talk to me, just close it off for us here. Really, it's a big, big picture, it's a big story, it's a big ask, but the future of civilization, it needs, what do you think it really needs?
We need to focus on what we have in common, not what keeps us apart. We need to spend more time together in the same room. I want a future where my kids grow up having broken bread on every continent with every civilization. And when we realize that, we'll be able to see how across continents we win together, not we compete against each other. That's the future I believe in that we need to build.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. It was a bit of an express trip around the world to see what we're going to do with the future of civilization. But again, I think there's so much that we all really need to do, and be it space, be it travel, be it investment, be it focus on Asia, be it focus on different continents. I think we're all heading in the right direction. So I want to leave it there, and thank you all so much, and thank you to our dear panel.
Thank you.